Okay, we're all set.
All right. So good morning, or I guess good evening. I think it's night where you guys are. My name is John. Today I'm going to be giving you guys a brief introduction to Photoshop. So Photoshop is a design tool or design software, which can be used for multiple things, image manipulation. You can create document layouts such as brochures, menus, multiple things that can be done. Today, I will be giving you a brief introduction, showing you a few tools that can be used. We will be creating the image that you see. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the image that thank you. This is the image that we'll be creating today. So when we first go into Photoshop, when we open Photoshop, this is the window which you are presented with. These are projects which I've done in the past. So these are always available when you first open up. Today we'll be starting from scratch. So we're going to come on here on the left-hand side and we're going to create new. What opens up here is your document settings. So let's start off with a name. We'll just do demo for today. Over here, we have our measurements. So today I'm going to go with a Instagram post, which is 1080 by 1080 pixels. I typically always work in pixels. You can choose to work in inches, centimeters, millimeters. There's other options, but when it comes to photos, pixels just makes more sense. This right here is the color resolution, which obviously the higher, the more pixels within the picture. We'll leave that standard for today. So we'll press OK. Now here what we have our interface. So on top we have, so let me just get rid of this thing right here. Okay, so on the top here, we have what's called our menu bar. So from our menu bar, I'm gonna press File to bring in an image. So I am going to bring in, so let's start off with this guy right here. This right here is the color palette for left, which is the colors that we work with. Now, if you can tell up top here, we have what are called tabs. These tabs allow us to go from one image to the other. If you look on the right-hand side here, we have what's called our panel section. In our panel section, we are given our layers that we are working with. As you can tell, each image at the moment only has one layer. I'm going to open another image, which allows you to bring an image into the artboard that you're working on. So I go to File, I come over here to Place Embedded. Now, the difference with this is it allows me to open an image within the existing tab and it places it on top, as you can see. If you look on the right-hand side, we now have two layers. One thing I wanted to talk about was this little locked image. So when that locked image is activated, you actually are not able to do anything with that layer. So all you got to do is click on it. That now deactivates the lock and you're able to move it. So what I did here was I selected the Move tool. This bar on the left-hand side is called my toolbar. It's very extensive. Actually, when you go into one tool, it has options for more tools. So today we're not going to get into every single tool. I'm going to show you guys a few basic tools just so we can do a few basic things. So I'll continue with the Move tool. I'm going to lock this background again. If you come over here, there is a little lock icon. So I press that, it leaves it in place again. So let's get started with the crop tool. So this image I will be using as a background. I only need half a face and I don't need anything that I see in the background. So when it comes to cropping, we have a few options. So if you come over here, we have a lasso tool, which allows me to freehand and simply just choose what I want. It's not the best to be exact, but if you're trying to be rough and quick, this is an option that's available, which allows you to then cut the tool out. Make sure the layer is selected, which you're using. Okay, so let's go over here. We're going to select one of my favorite tools, which is called the Quick Selection tool. Sorry, the Magic Wand. The reason I like the Magic Wand is because it actually selects the whole image. Sorry, what it does is it actually selects, for example, in this case, I'm selecting the green, so it selects all the green that's in the image. If I press delete, make sure you're on the actual layer. So what it's telling me here is that my image is not a smart object, which does not allow me to actually edit the image. So in order to get rid of that, we right click on this image, we go down here and we press Rasterize Layer. What does that do? That allows us to now manipulate the image. So again, I go to my selection tool, select the background, press delete. As you can tell, it has now deleted the background. This now makes this image, where the background is no longer there. So obviously it's now a transparent background. This right here is my Marquee Tool. It allows me to select certain parts of the image. And what I'm able to do with this is, I will show you, I'll move it. If I press delete, then I'll delete half the face. So I'll be working with this guy right here, but for now, we're not going to use this guy. So I'm going to press this little eye icon, which actually makes it disappear from the image, which permits me to work on my artboard. So now the color palettes. If I come over here to the bottom left-hand side of my toolbar, you can see I have two colors selected. If I click on here, I get my color panel. Now, if I want to select any color that I have available on my artboard, I simply click it and it selects it. Press OK. And now that color has been selected. So if I click any tool from this, which uses colors, it will now have this color selected. So let's start with the background. I'm gonna make this the left color. I'm gonna show you how to make a shape. So if you come here to the shape tool, as you can tell, you have different options for different shapes. Let's go with the rectangle tool. Now, if I simply just, let me explain one thing quickly. So up here you have the color, which will be selected for the shape. We have fill, stroke. What stroke is an outline. So for example, if I were to press this guy, white, fill, let's go with blue so we can see it. And now, as you can tell, it has populated my square. It has given me my white border and my blue fill, which is what I selected. Over here, we have our measurements for the border. So as you can tell, it's a very thick border. What I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize it. So right here, I can play with it, think something thick, something thin, whatever you need. Today, what I actually need is no fill. So I press this line, it gives me nothing inside. I'm going to go to the stroke and let's go with a white color. And we'll go with size 5. See how that looks. That seems to work pretty good. So now I'm going to, sorry, if I grab the corners, I'm able to play with the size of it. If I hold shift, what that does is it actually uniformly changes the shape, or sorry, the size of the shape. So let's just play with this right here a little bit. As you can tell, it actually gives me a guide when I'm moving it. And as you can tell there, it tells me that it's perfectly centered. So we'll leave that guy there. I am gonna now make the face visible, which is the one we're gonna use. Again, I don't like this white border. So if I select the magic wand, as you can tell, it only selects the specific color. Perfect, that works just great. Now with this image, what I want to do is I want to flip it because I want to be using it on this side. However, I want the image to be flipped. So if I go up here to edit, transform, I'm able to flip horizontally. Now I have the image right here. I'm sorry, guys, if you have any questions, please just stop me. I'm kind of just working here. So if you have any questions, stop me and I'll gladly answer. Okay, so again, we're going to resize this guy. Yep, go ahead.
I just want to understand the difference between this version of Photoshop that you're using now, the 2021, and the CS6 one.
So what it is, essentially, it's going to be the tools that are available. Every year, Photoshop adds new tools, new options. I'm working on 2020 right now. You might see that the layout may be a little bit different. but essentially it's the same thing. You may not have certain options with the older Photoshops.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, guys, so with this image right here, as I said before, we have our layers that we're working with on the right-hand side. Now, I need this face to be underneath this rectangle. So all I simply do is select the rectangle and move it on up. And now this image is now underneath the rectangle. So I'm going to resize this guy, be a full image right there. Okay. Now, if I were to leave this like this, obviously that would be the main attraction of the image, would be what you'd be looking at. We don't want that. So what we want is we want to make this image a little bit more transparent. So up here, I have what says opacity. Opacity, as you can tell, is at 100%. If I play with this, what it does is it plays with the transparency of the image. So I want something light like that, maybe a little bit darker so I can see them. Let's leave that for now. Once we put the text on top, we can play with that opacity percentage, and then we can kind of see where we want it. Now, another thing I wanted to show you was something called a mask. So if we put a mask on an image, what that does, it essentially puts a layer on top of that existing layer, and we can manipulate that specific layer. So for example, if I wanted to, what I want to do is I want to make this image look like it's disappearing. So I'm going to come over here to my tool section. I'm going to select my Granite tool. Now up here, you could tell in the options bar that it's given me this color palette. So if I come over here, I want this guy, this color to be white, and I want this guy to be black. Actually, I want this guy to be transparent. Okay, let's try this out. So I have selected the face, and now let me show you kind of what it does. There you go. So as you can tell, as I play with it, it starts to make the image disappear. So essentially, all I really want to do is not have this hard edge. So I choose the Granite tool, and I kind of just start to play with it, and it starts to make things disappear. What's it doing? It's actually, if you can tell over here, you can tell there's a black, half a black image. So what I'm doing is I'm actually essentially painting this layer, which is on top of the face. So it allows me to give it the disappearing effect. So I'm pretty happy with that. We'll leave that as is. Let's bring in the quote that we'll be using. Okay, so this is the quote I'm going to be using. I'm going to resize it just because I only need the text. Place that here. If I come over here to the left-hand side to my toolbar, the text tool, the T, and let's just start writing what we need. Okay, so let's make this guy disappear. Remember with the eye icon, whatever you don't need in the moment, you just press the eye icon, it makes it disappear. I like that because if you do need that picture, it's always there, so you don't have to reopen it again. All right, so I'm going to double click on the T. What that does is it highlights all the text that I've just written. I'm going to come over here, and in my options bar, it now gives me options for what type of font I want, my size. So let's start with the size. Actually, let's start with the color. As of right now, you can tell it's the same color as the background, so we're not able to see it. We'll go with white for the time being. And we can start looking for the font that we need. Now, Photoshop does come stock with many fonts. However, throughout my years of using Photoshop, I simply go online. I go to 1000fonts.com, and then you're able to download font files and then insert them into Photoshop, which then just gives you a more personalized touch when it comes to your designs. So you're not just using whatever's in stock. So let's just go with something basic today. Just kind of show you. Something simple like this. Okay. So an investment knowledge pays the best. So essentially here, you kind of just play with your design, what kind of design you're looking for. I showed you guys, this is kind of something I created for left, and I've been doing it every week. I try to put a different quote, but with the same layout to create kind of a consistent look for the brand. So as you can tell, I just do the text from the bottom, from the top to the bottom. So we're going to do that. We play with the colors. So let's go with a larger size. So that might be too big. Let's try 24. All right, we'll leave that for the time being. Okay. So as you can tell, because I wrote everything under one layer, I'm not able to manipulate the words separately. So if you want to do that, what you would have to do is write the words separately. So for example, what I typically do is I write, actually, I'll show you guys how I do this to make it fast and easy. So I click the text layer, I press Command copy or Control copy, depending if you're on Mac. I'm on Mac, so I press Command J, and that literally just copies whatever layer I would like to copy. So what I do here is on the first one, I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to delete the second line and the fourth line. And I go into the other one and I delete the first line and the third line. Why am I doing this? Because now I am able to double click this guy. And if I wanted to change, so what this allows is it allows me to just play with the colors. So for example, let me come back here for a second. So on the bottom here where I select my colors, there's a little arrow that allows me to actually have two colors selected. So I'm going to switch this over and I'm going to go with the light pink for the text, which looks very nice on top of the burgundy. So I come back over to my other tab, select this again, come over to the colors, select the light pink. And as you can see now, an investment pays the have been changed in colors. Select this guy. I'm going to keep white, but if I wanted to, same idea. Come over here, and if I wanted black, it would change it to black. So that's just a way to kind of play with the colors and not have to create a text for every single word. So now let's start with these guys. Also, if you press Shift, it allows you to choose multiple layers at the same time. The reason you may want to do that is to move things around so you can move them uniformly. So for example, right here, I'm going to move these guys at the moment together, kind of center them. Okay. So as you can tell, the background is a little bit dark. I might still remove a little bit of opacity, something like that. I do want to bring the logo in, so I'm going to have to leave a good space for the logo on the right-hand side. So let's go to File, Place Embedded, and choose the logo, which is all white. So this is already it's a cropped image where it has nothing in the background, which is exactly what we need. Now, as you can tell here, we're able to select the corners, the sides. What this does is we're able to transform it in different ways. So the first thing I actually want to do is I want to flip it. So as you can tell, the arrow on the corner there, if I hold Shift and I move this guy, it actually places it for me perfectly. So I'm going to move it like this. I will resize it. Again, I hold Shift, so it scales it down uniformly. I place this guy right here. All right, that looks pretty good. And then I need to add the gentleman's name. Benjamin Franklin. So as you can tell, the guides always show up. Another thing I wanted to show you guys is the rulers that you see on the section here. You can actually press on this ruler, drag a line, and what that does is it gives you a guide. So for example, if I want everything to be lined up, I leave that guy there. It leaves that guide for me. And then I'm able to leave. Okay. So as you can see, we've created the image. It only took a few minutes, very straightforward. But the nice thing about Photoshop is it does allow you to manipulate the images a lot more. For example, what we did with the face in the background is something that, for example, Canva probably doesn't allow. I don't think it allows you to cut out the backgrounds. I may be mistaken. However, I just find you're able to manipulate images a lot more with Photoshop. Okay, so once we have this image, go to File, Save As. Now, Photoshop gives you different formats in which you can save. You always want to save at least one copy under the Photoshop. Reason being, if you want to come back, make any changes, it's always there. It saves all the layers. It's the only way that it saves layers is if you save it under a Photoshop format. Now, obviously, to post it online, we go with a JPEG or a PNG. And just press save. And that's basically it. It tells you the size images. This is very straightforward. I don't really ever play with this. I leave it as the standard, press OK. My image has been saved. That's a pretty much straightforward introduction to Photoshop. Showed you some of the basic tools. Do you guys have any questions with the interface? Any particular tools you might want to see?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes, John. I would like you to repeat the part where you manipulate the picture, the image, remove the background.
For sure. Okay, let's do that. So I'm just going to remove all these other images just for the sake of us being able to see everything.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the layer mask. Delete layer mask. Okay. Let's bring it back up to 100%. Did you want me to start by removing the background, or did you just want to see how I kind of made it disappear? Okay. Okay, let's start again.
Where you remove the background.
No problem. No problem. So let's bring it in again. So I want to bring it into this current artboard. So we'll go File, Place Embedded. We'll bring in Benji. All right. So again, when you first open an image into another artboard, it actually automatically gives you the option to transform it, which means the size. You can just press Enter, or you can come up here to this little check, and that just commits to the transformation. Okay. So like I said before, when it comes to removing backgrounds, there's multiple options. My favorite one is the magic wand because it just automatically selects everything that's, I guess, the same color, the same texture. So first thing we want to do is, because this image is what's called a smart image, we want to rasterize layer. So that is with any image. If you ever try to do anything on Photoshop, so for example, I think we did, and it gives you this, could not complete your request because the smart object is not directly editable. Then you just come over here, you right click, and you rasterize the layer. That's a standard procedure. You do that with any image that doesn't allow you to edit it. Okay, so like I said, we're going to select the magic wand, which is under the selection tools. Select the green, which we don't want. Now, all I'm doing is pressing delete. One button, it's all gone. Now, there's another white border here that I don't like, so I select that. Same thing, it selects just the white, I press delete, gone. And I kind of just keep playing with the image and kind of keep going around. And as you can see, it has now selected it. So this image is now free. It's got no background. I can place it wherever I want. As you can see, if I were to save it like this, it would just be the face, and you'd be able to open that on Canva and just put that anywhere else. You could open it and you would just see the face. All right. So after I did this, the other thing I did was the layer mask. So select the layer, come down here, and you want to select the layer, add layer mask. As you can see there, it populates add layer mask. So I'm going to add the layer mask. Make sure you have the layer you want to work with selected because it does add it specifically to that layer. Now that I have that layer mask selected, what that allows me to do is work on top of this layer, which will directly affect this image. So I wanted to make it disappear. I chose my Granite tool. Now, all I'm doing is I click and I drag. Depending how far I drag, it's going to make it disappear further. By the way, on Mac, Command Z undoes anything. So if I do something, I want to undo it, Command Z will do it right away. There's a bunch of, what's it called? There are a bunch of, I guess, buttons you can press just to make, to populate certain tools. I don't know them all, and they're different between Mac and Windows, so I won't get too much into that. But regardless, what I'm doing here is I'm just dragging where I want to delete, or sorry, where I want to kind of make disappear. And as you can see here, the layer mask, it's been blacked out on the right-hand side, which is why we can't see this image fully on this side. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
You're very welcome. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, well, that was a brief introduction. Like I said, Photoshop is extremely complex. You can spend hours just learning the tools that are available. If you do use Photoshop, I'm more than willing to help anyone if they have any questions with any projects, whatever you need. Also on YouTube, how to do whatever on Photoshop, and there are millions of videos on people explaining. It's very important that you try and find a video that is showing Photoshop of the year that you have, because there are certain tools that you will not have if it's an older Photoshop, and you might get frustrated trying to look for them. So always make sure that you're watching a video that has the same Photoshop that you have. And yeah, there's no more questions. I guess I'll throw it over to you, Hannah.
Thank you, John, for sharing this demo with